Welcome to Headline to Heartline. Some doorways feel heavy to open, and tonight we open one with Virginia's name on it. Yes, I'm talking about her, Virginia Giuffre. Our last video was about her legacy. I use the word suicide because that is what we know officially. Tonight we look at her death and the mysteries around it, and we name the forces that make the air in this story feel wrong. Virginia was a victim as a child and as an adult, and the case around her death feels off, like a closed room where the air does not move the way it should. As your host and journalist, my job is to bring you the confirmed facts and to mark clearly what is still unknown. As a woman, I also recognize what so many of you are feeling, that something larger may be hidden in plain sight. Virginia spent years in the orbit of people with wealth, international reach, and the power to protect names. That is not a conspiracy, it is a description of influence. Prince Andrew, the former Duke of York, is a clear example of how power speaks about harm. He has denied wrongdoing and settled a civil case without admitting liability, but the posture of entitlement so often heard in his public stance reads to many of us as a minimization that reduces a survivor to someone expected to say thank you for abuse. My reading of his public line is that it strips the dignity from what Virginia named, and the larger network around Epstein learned the same moves, the same vocabulary, the same reflex to protect itself. That is what we mean when we say the air in this case feels off. Before anything else, we need to say this clearly. Virginia Giuffre is the third prominent Epstein accuser who is no longer with us. Carolyn Andriano died in 2023 from an accidental overdose after testifying in the Maxwell trial. Lee Skye Patrick died in 2017 of a drug overdose. It is a map of loss that shows how deep trauma runs and how much accountability still matters. Questions and rumors grew fast for reasons many of you already know. An older message of Virginia's resurfaced where she said she was not suicidal and warned that there were people who wanted her silenced. Weeks before her death, she described a bus crash and serious complications in her own hospital updates, while police summarized the collision as minor with no injuries reported at the time. Add the long shadow of secrecy around the Epstein network and the power of the names involved, and it makes sense that people looked for patterns instead of closure. Here is what is confirmed. Her family said Virginia died by suicide at home in Western Australia. Police said early indications were not suspicious, and as the law requires, they referred the matter to the coroner. In that system, a coroner reviews scene evidence, interviews, medical history, autopsy, and toxicology, then issues written findings or decides whether to hold an inquest. Specifics about method or toxicology have not been released publicly. We do not have those details. Many of you asked about timing. In Western Australia, coronial work moves in stages. The medical and toxicology phase alone can take many months, often around 9 months depending on complexity. Overall, a coronial inquiry commonly takes longer than 12 months to complete, and if the coroner decides to hold a formal inquest, the total timeline can extend well past 18 months and sometimes far longer. When police finish their investigation and the full file reaches the coroner, written findings often follow in roughly 6 weeks, but only after that file arrives. In short, the process is slow because it is evidence-driven. It is not unusual for families to wait many months for a final answer. There were serious family challenges in the months before she died. Public reporting shows she and her husband were estranged. A court issued a restraining order, and she had made allegations of domestic abuse. I'm not here to retry anyone in public. I am here to acknowledge that separation from her children and legal conflict were part of the burden she carried near the end. The gap between her hospital posts and the police traffic report is real. She said the bus crash led to kidney failure and that doctors told her she had days to live. Police, looking at the collision itself, called it minor with no injuries recorded at the time, and she was discharged a week later. That difference can reflect the limits of a roadside assessment, complications that emerge later, or simple privacy around medical records. Only the coroner can reconcile the timeline with clinical evidence. Until those findings are public, the honest answer is that we are looking at 2 different lenses on the same month, and we do not have the medical file to bridge them. If this careful, survivor-centered approach matters to you, Please like and subscribe so more people can find it. What remains open and appropriate to ask is specific and fair. What do the medical records show between the hospital discharge in early April and the end of the month? What do the last 72 hours of calls and messages clarify about timeline and support? Will bus footage or collision data be released to reconcile the gap between her posts and the police summary? Will the coroner publish a detailed decision or hold an inquest that explains conclusions in plain language? These are not accusations. They are requests for transparent answers, so the public is not left stitching together rumor and grief. I want to place Virginia back at the center. She was a mother, an advocate, and a writer who turned private pain into public protection. She warned how systems can make exploitation look normal. She asked families to draw the battle lines and stand together so the next teenager is safe. Whatever the coroner concludes, donations, titles, and statements from powerful men cannot undo what was done or return Virginia to those who loved her. Accountability means truth told, harm acknowledged, and changes made so the patterns cannot repeat. When I first read about her death, it hurt my heart deeply. If you or someone you love is struggling, in the United States, you can dial 988 for support. Wherever you are, please reach out to a trusted local service or clinician. You are not alone. Thank you for being here and for caring enough to ask hard questions kindly. Please subscribe to the channel and like the video and share this with someone who needs a steady voice tonight. Until next time, we will meet again at that heavy doorway and lift it together with gentle hands.